He had everything: wealth, power, success. But when the courts took his daughter away, he realized he had nothing, until a beggar girl looked him in the eye and said, "Sir, I know how to get your daughter back." The courthouse doors slammed shut behind Nicholas Carter as he staggered down the marble steps, his mind spinning. It was over. He had fought, begged, hired the best lawyers money could buy, and yet he had lost. The judge's words echoed in his head like a cruel taunt. The court grants full custody of Sophia Carter to her mother. Mr. Carter will have supervised visitation only. Supervised, like he was a danger to his own daughter. His fists clenched as he ripped off his tie, suffocated by the weight of what had just happened. He wasn't a bad father. He wasn't abusive or neglectful. He was just alone. A self-made millionaire who had spent years building his empire, thinking money could solve everything. But in the end, it hadn't been enough. The world blurred as he stumbled toward his car, parked on the side of the street. He barely noticed the passers-by, the murmurs of people watching a broken man in $1,000 suit who looked like he had lost everything. Then a small voice spoke up. "Sir?" Nicholas blinked, snapping out of his daze. He turned and saw a thin, ragged girl standing near the curb. Her oversized sweater swallowed her small frame, and her hair hung in messy tangles around her face. She couldn't have been older than 11 or 12. He frowned. "What?" She hesitated, then took a small step closer. "I know how to get your daughter back." Nicholas stared at her. A beggar girl, offering advice on custody battles. For the first time in hours, he felt something other than pain. He felt curiosity, and he had no idea that this moment, this girl, was about to change everything. Nicholas narrowed his eyes at the girl, unsure whether to laugh or walk away. His entire world had just collapsed, and now a beggar girl was standing in front of him, claiming she knew how to fix it. It sounded ridiculous, impossible, and yet something in her eyes stopped him from dismissing her right away. There was no mockery, no pity, just quiet certainty, like she knew something he didn't. He exhaled, rubbing a hand over his face. "Look, kid, I don't have time for games." She didn't flinch. Instead, she tilted her head, studying him like she was trying to decide whether he was worth helping. Then she spoke again. "I'm not playing a game, sir. I really do know how to help you get her back." Nicholas let out a humorless chuckle. "Yeah, and how exactly would you know anything about custody battles?" The girl's lips pressed together, as if debating whether she should tell him, but then she squared her thin shoulders. "Because I've been there, I lost my family too." Nicholas's amusement faded, replaced by something else, something heavier. "What do you mean?" The girl shifted on her feet, wrapping her arms around herself. "I had a family, once a home, but then the court took me away, just like they did with your daughter. They said it was for my own good, that I'd be better off somewhere else. But they were wrong. I ended up worse alone, scared. No one fought hard enough to bring me back, so I ran." Nicholas stared at her, his mind struggling to process what she had just said. She was a runaway. He glanced around the busy street, noticing for the first time how people walked past her without a second glance, like she was invisible, just another forgotten child lost in the cracks of a system that didn't care. It made something in his chest tighten uncomfortably. He crossed his arms, still skeptical, but no longer dismissive. "All right, let's say I believe you. What exactly do you think I should do?" The girl's expression didn't change. "You have money, but money won't win this fight." Nicholas's jaw clenched. That much was obvious. She continued, "They took her because they think she'd be better off without you, so prove them wrong. Show them you're more than just a rich man in a suit. Show them you know how to be a father." Nicholas's frustration flared. "I am a father. I've given her everything she's ever needed." The girl's gaze sharpened. "Everything. except the one thing that matters most. Nicholas stilled as her words hit a nerve. The girl took a cautious step closer. Do you even know what your daughter's favorite food is? Her favorite bedtime story? Who her best friend is? Nicholas opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came out because he didn't know. A sick realization settled in his gut. He had provided for Sophia, given her the best schools, the best toys, the best clothes. But had he ever really been there for her? Had he ever sat down and just listened to her? Or had he always been too busy running his company, assuming that providing money was the same as being a parent? His silence must have said enough, because the girl nodded. You love her, I can tell, but love isn't enough if you don't show it. Nicholas let out a slow breath, gripping the bridge of his nose. All right, then tell me what I need to do. The girl's lips curled into the smallest hint of a smile. First, you need to learn how to be a dad. Nicholas let out a short laugh, shaking his head. Unbelievable. I'm taking advice from a kid. A kid who might just be the only person telling you the truth, she countered. Nicholas studied her again, despite the ragged clothes, the messy hair. She spoke with a confidence far beyond her years, like someone who had seen more of life than she should have. What's your name? He asked finally. She hesitated, then answered, Lily. Well, Lily, you've got my attention. What's next? Lily gave him a small, knowing smile before turning on her heel and walking down the sidewalk as if she expected him to follow without hesitation. Nicholas hesitated for only a second before sighing and falling into step behind her. This was insane. He had just lost a brutal legal battle against his ex-wife. His entire world had come crashing down, and now here he was, trailing after a homeless girl through the streets of the city. But he couldn't deny it. Something about her words had struck a nerve. Lily weaved through the crowds with ease, ducking past vendors and pedestrians until they reached a quieter part of town. Nicholas glanced around, frowning. Where are we going? Lily didn't stop as she responded. You want to get your daughter back. Right then, you need to learn what she actually needs, what she actually feels, not just what you think she does. Nicholas scoffed. I know my daughter Lily shot him a look over her shoulder. Do you? The question made him pause. Did he? He had provided everything for Sophia. Private tutors, designer clothes, an entire floor of their mansion filled with toys. And yet, when he thought back to the last time he had actually spent a full, uninterrupted day with her, he came up blank. How had he let that happen? Lily finally stopped in front of a run-down community center, its brick walls covered in faded murals of smiling children. Nicholas frowned in confusion. What is this? She turned to face him. This is where kids come when they have nowhere else to go, when the courts say their families aren't good enough, when they feel lost, alone, unwanted. She paused, letting her words sink in, before continuing. Kids like me. Kids like your daughter. Nicholas's stomach twisted. He had spent the last year locked in a legal battle, fighting for custody, but never once had he stopped to think about what Sophia was going through, what it felt like for a little girl to be caught between two parents constantly at war. Lily nodded toward the entrance. You want to prove you're the father she needs, then start by understanding her. Nicholas exhaled, shaking his head. This is ridiculous. How is coming here going to win me custody? Lily didn't blink. Money won't change the judge's mind, but proving that you're willing to change might. Nicholas clenched his jaw, but before he could argue, a group of kids burst through the doors, laughing, running past them onto the sidewalk. He watched as they chased each other, their smiles wide and carefree, but then he noticed some of them had that same look. Lily did the look of kids who had learned too early that the world wasn't kind. Lily's voice softened. Kids don't care about money. They care about time. They care about the little things, the moments that tell them they're loved. Nicholas swallowed hard, a lump forming in his throat. Could it really be that simple? Lily smirked. Come on, rich guy. Let's see if you can survive a day in their world. Nicholas sighed, rubbing a hand over his face, before finally pushing open the door and stepping inside. He had no idea that this decision was about to change everything. The moment Nicholas stepped inside the community center, he felt completely out of place. The walls were lined with colorful drawings, some of them vibrant and full of life, others messy and chaotic. But all of them told stories. Tables and chairs were scattered around the room. Some kids sat in small groups playing board games. Others read old books, while a few younger ones chased each other in a game of tag. It was nothing like the pristine, polished world he was used to in his multi-million-dollar offices, where everything was sleek and calculated. Here, everything felt raw, unfiltered, real. Lily walked ahead, weaving through the kids like she belonged here, which Nicholas realized she probably did. He hesitated near the entrance, feeling the weight of the stares from a few volunteers and children who had noticed him, a man in an expensive suit. In a place like this, it was obvious he didn't fit. Lily turned to him with a smirk. Don't just stand there, rich guy, come on. Nicholas exhaled and forced his legs to move, following her. Deeper inside, Lily led him to a corner where a small group of kids sat cross-legged on the floor. They looked up at him with curiosity. One of them, a little boy no older than 6 with messy brown hair, pointed at him. Are you a lawyer? Nicholas almost laughed, shaking his head. No. The boy narrowed his eyes, then. Are you a detective? Lily snorted, sitting down across from them. Nah, he's just a dad trying to figure out how to be a good one. Nicholas stiffened at that, the words hitting him harder than he expected. A little girl with pigtails tilted her head like Sophia, she whispered. His chest tightened instantly. What did you say? Lily's expression softened. She's been talking about her. Nicholas's heart pounded. How do you know about Sophia? Lily shrugged. Word gets around the kids, hear things. And Sophia? Well, she's not the only one who's been through this. Nicholas sat down hesitantly, looking around at the children. Some of them had smiles on their faces, but others had that same lost look. Lily had the kind that said they knew what it felt like to be taken from a home, to be told they belonged somewhere else, whether they wanted to or not. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling slowly. I don't know what I'm doing here, Lily smirked, finally. Some honesty. Nicholas frowned, glaring at her, but before he could say anything, the little boy spoke again. My dad left too. Nicholas turned to him, confused. What? The boy nodded. My mom said he had work, and that's why he never came back. But I think he just didn't want me. Nicholas's breath caught in his throat. Another child, a girl no older than 10, spoke up. My mom wanted me, but she couldn't keep me, 'cause she was sick. Another voice, mine, couldn't afford to take care of me. Nicholas felt like the air had been sucked out of the room, the legal battle he had fought for. Sophia had been brutal, but he had never once thought about how it all felt from her perspective. Did she think he didn't want her? Did she feel abandoned? Lily watched him, carefully reading, the emotions flickering across his face. You want to win Sophia back, she said softly. Then you need to understand what she's feeling, not what you feel, not what the court thinks, not what the lawyers argue, what she feels. Nicholas swallowed hard for the first time in his life. He didn't have an answer. A small hand tugged on his sleeve. He looked down to see the little boy staring at him. Do you think Sophia misses you? Nicholas's throat tightened. I hope so. The boy smiled. Then, you should tell her. Nicholas felt something shift inside him. For the first time in this entire fight, he realized he had been so focused on winning custody that he had never stopped to think about what Sophia needed most. Him. Nicholas sat there staring at the little boy's innocent face, his heart pounding in his chest. He had spent months throwing money at lawyers, crafting legal strategies, trying to prove he was the better parent. But not once had he actually thought about how Sophia felt, what she needed, what she was going through. Lily watched him closely, her expression unreadable. Well, rich guy, you finally getting it. Nicholas ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. I thought I had to prove to the court that I could provide for her. I thought that would be enough, but it's not, is it? Lily shook her head. Nope. She doesn't need more money, she needs more you. The words hit him like a freight train. He thought back to the last year. How many times had he told himself he was working late for Sophia's future? How many times had he missed bedtime stories, school events, weekends with her, because he thought success would give her the best life? But sitting here now, surrounded by children who had lost everything, he realized something terrifying. Sophia probably felt like she had lost him long before the court had taken her away. His stomach twisted with guilt. What do I do now? Lily smirked. Now, you start being a father, not just in court, but in her life. Nicholas hesitated. And how exactly do I do that? Lily shrugged. You show up. Nicholas frowned. That's it, just show up. She nodded. Kids don't need perfect. They don't need fancy. They just need to know that when they look up, you'll be there. Her words were so simple, yet they carried more weight than anything his legal team had told him. Nicholas took a deep breath, then stood up, determination settling into his bones. Where are you going? Lily asked, her smirk widening. I need to see my daughter, he said firmly. I need her to know I'm not giving up on her. Lily grinned. Now, you're getting it. Nicholas pulled out his phone, dialing his lawyer's number as he strode toward the door. He wasn't going to wait for another court date. He wasn't going to sit back and let strangers decide what was best for his child. He was going to prove it with actions, not words. But just as he reached the door, he paused, then turned back to Lily. What about you? She blinked, caught off guard. What about me? Nicholas studied her. You're smart. You don't belong out here alone, Lily scoffed. I do just fine. Nicholas shook his head. You deserve better. Lily looked away for the first time, uncertainty flickering in her expression. Come with me, Nicholas said. Meet Sophia. I think she'd like you. Lily hesitated, then slowly nodded. Okay. And with that, they stepped out of the community center together, two strangers brought together by fate. One determined to win back his daughter, the other finally realizing that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to be alone anymore. And neither of them knew that this was just the beginning.